Hey, Western Oklahoma schools, listen up. How would you like to win a $5,000 interactive smart display for your school? Thanks to Video Reality, an audio-video business in Oklahoma City, you could be awarded one. Here's how. From now through February 28th, anyone can text in one time per day through the entire promotion. The winner will be announced during our live coverage on the ParagonTV.com and Cool 94's coverage of the Saturday, March 2nd Class A and B basketball championships. Here's how to participate. The text line number is 580-225-9697. And in the text, simply type in the one-word name of the school you choose to support. We are so proud to partner with Video Reality that through their gracious gift in this promotion, some lucky school will be awarded a $5,000 interactive smart display. Remember, send a text to 580-225-9697. Type in your school's name. It can only be one word, and send it. Limit is one vote per day per phone number. Good luck. Video Reality, your audio, video, and control experts.
If you build it, he will.
It's the Skinny on Sports Podcast with Aaron Cowk.
I throw balls far. You want good words? Data language.
Talk real sports with a real man.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
And now, here's the be-all, end-all, know-it-all of high school, college, and pro sports. Aaron Skinny Cowk with the Skinny on Sports.
We're talking about practice, man. I'm the MVP.
Good Paul Jones Drug Tuesday out there, Western Oklahoma. Welcome to the Skinny on Sports, right here on 98.1 FM, the Sports Animal. Glad to have you along for the next hour. We've got plenty to get into. The newest high school hoops rankings are out. You can kind of look at those and see. It's just because it's been, I think December 18th was the last time that those rankings were reported before yesterday afternoon. So we can look at those, see kind of some shifts that might have happened due to some results in the different tournaments. Games tonight, full slate of games on the high school hoops docket for this evening. So we can talk about that. Thunder snapped the two-game losing streak, back on the winning side of things after defeating Washington. See if they can split the road trip with the game down in Miami tomorrow. NFL, we'll get back to the NFL a little bit, talk more about what the playoff picture looks like, what are the best games, what are the favorite games of the Super Wild Card weekend. Kind of a light Black Monday, it seems like. I think everybody is just in holding pattern, waiting to see what happens in New England. And then maybe that starts a domino effect of different things happening, depending on whether or not Belichick is out as the coach of the Patriots or not. So it's almost like the teams that didn't make the playoffs, that part of the league is kind of in a standstill and a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens up there. But we hit a bunch of the playoffs, kind of just the matchups and look at it and what it could be moving forward. And then, of course, last night, the national championship game in college football. Michigan dominates Washington to win their third national title, first since 1997. It was a game that it was weird because it felt like it was closer than it should have been throughout like 3.5 quarters, a little over 3 quarters. And then Michigan put the hammer down right at the end to pull away and win by 3 scores. But it's kind of an odd one because it felt like Michigan dominated to me throughout most of that game. Yet you looked up and it's 20-13, and Washington has the ball with like 10 minutes left. And then all of a sudden, there went the Wolverines finishing it off. So we'll talk about what happened last night, just everything surrounding that game and college football in general. 225-9698 is the phone or the text line. It is 225-9698. Give us a call, shoot us a text. We can talk about any of those things. Whatever else might be on your mind, feel free to chime right in at 225-9698. If you're going to be outside the listening area, stay in touch with us a couple of ways. Log on to KADSAM.com or download the app. Paragon app is free, and it's got everything. Radio stations, all 3 here in Elk City. The Penny News. Brand new edition. That Penny News hits the website tonight at midnight. Check out the deals in next week's Penny News through the app. Big Elk and Paragon TV on the air tonight with high school hoops galore. And then the Skinny on Sports podcast. You can find it anywhere podcasts drop, and you can check us out there. How are you doing today, Jared?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. for a 3-touchdown difference in the score last night, that game was pretty entertaining until, the last 8 minutes, when once Michigan got up 2 scores, it was more than obvious that maybe that was the end of things. But it really kind of it held my attention throughout the entirety of it last night, and I can't say the same thing about a bunch of those title games since the 14 playoff has been implemented.
Held my interest for a long time. That's for sure. I was entertained, but I'm with you in what you said there. It felt like Michigan always had control, but it just felt like Washington kept giving themselves chances. But I was entertained with it, and I think the 2 best teams got there. I feel like the 2 best teams got there.
I do not. I feel like the best team in the country didn't even make the playoff.
Being
Georgia.
Oh, okay. Are you going to say Florida State?
No.
Liberty?
And I can't fire Florida State at you when they got beat by 60, but the team that did beat them by 60, I just think that Georgia probably was the best team. But hey, that's part of it, right? I mean, with 4, it limits the fields, and maybe some deserving teams make it in over some better teams, which I honestly have no problem with. I sat here and fought tooth and nail with the Florida State decision. I thought it was ridiculous because the committee didn't do either thing.
Right.
They didn't get the most deserving, and they didn't get the best. But it ends up with Michigan. They were dominant all season long, man. It in the early part, halfway through the year, you looked up and you saw what Michigan had been doing, and it was like, whoa, they've got some kind of historic beat-down numbers of people, defensively especially. And then it was like, well, no, they're not playing anybody. And quite frankly, that was true. And then they get to the back half of their schedule. Penn State is what Penn State is a decent team that has a way better name than probably what their team really is on the field. But they suffocated them down to nothing. The Ohio State game, they pulled it out. And then, of course, you look at in the 2 playoff games, beating Alabama and Washington. They're a deserving champion. There's no doubt about that. I thought last night some key plays in the game. For a while, it looked like Jim Harbaugh going for the 4th down with 4 minutes left to play in the first half might have swung the entire thing. It felt like Michigan's defense had a pretty good beat on what Washington was trying to do. It's inside the 40. I mean, I get why he did it, because it was almost a knockout punch they could have landed up 17-3. Mm-hmm. Even though Washington got the ball to start the second half, you go at 3 scores, that makes it really tough on the Huskies. But a great defensive play then led to the only drive of the night where it looked like Michael Penix was Michael Penix as he went down. It was strange to watch him, and pressure affects people. There's no doubt about that, and that's what we said yesterday. Michigan wins this game if they can get pressure with 4, and they did it all night long. Maybe not resulting in sacks, but it darn sure resulted in hits and hurries and making Penix miss guys that were open. I'm not even talking about throws. I'm talking about missing guys eye-wise that he didn't even see. Herbstreit was really on that last night,
downfield he missed,
kind of showing some different things and attributing it to the pressure that Michigan was putting on him, just not letting him scan the field like he's used to and pick out those guys. So it was a really, really good performance defensively by Michigan. There's no doubt about that. And then offensively, here's the truth, and Will Bowie hit it dead on the head with the very first text on the text line today. Michigan was too physical for Washington. They dominated both lines of scrimmage.
That's what I wrote down. Who gives the, if their MVP of the game is Michigan's defensive line or offensive line? Because I thought both of them played phenomenal, and I loved it because it goes back to the old adage of games are won in the trenches. And it showed last night on both sides. Defensively, though, keeping Penix constantly applying pressure and containing him in the same vein, in the same process. That was impressive because good quarterbacks will find a way to scramble and get the ball downfield and elude and stuff like that. And even designed quarterback run plays were stymied at time more often than not. So the defensive line was physical. And then the offensive line, it was a tone setter, right? With the huge runs early and then they controlled the game throughout. So I loved it. That's Big Ten football, it felt like. We were watching a Big Ten football game, and it will be in the future, obviously, but with how they just push you up front and physically just dominated, and that's what Michigan's been doing all season long, and they continued that last night. So I love the defensive line and offensive line play. It felt like that's what won the game.
Yeah, another big play, and it just seems like, I don't know if this is a product of having so many more angles at things or people just being more aware, but man, 11:40 to go, a big third down, a third and long for Washington. Penix hits the ball down the sideline to Odunze, and a holding is called.
Yeah.
And a fairly suspect holding for what was going on throughout the entirety of that game, to the point it makes it, 3rd and 18 instead of a 32-yard gain into Michigan territory, down 7. It ends up being 3rd and 18. Washington has to punt. Then on the very next play for Michigan, a clear hold doesn't get called on a long pass to Loveland right over the middle. I mean, it was like, wow, those plays just happened basically back to back, and one was more obvious than the other. It was a really important play at the time, with the way that game was, first off, being called, and second off, how close it was. One possession game, but at the end of the day, because of the dominance that Michigan showed on both lines of scrimmage, I don't know if you can say it's a game-defining play, but it was darn sure important when it happened.
Yeah, it was. But I don't know how much the game-defining thing you said, I don't know how much of effect it really had.
Because it always felt like Michigan was going to win.
It did. It did. It did. It just felt. And then, but again, I credit Washington where they could have folded it up early and succumbed to the pressure of suddenly being down, and then just kind of hanging around. And that's why I guess I kept my interest. Like, okay, if they break through here, okay, they can get it within one score, and they did. And if they can get a stop here, man, they thought they were about to, and then. Michigan's quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, he with that scramble run up the middle. I know that it didn't result in points, but it resulted in time off the clock and field position. So they were right there. I think that's what was almost the key play to me anyways, was stopping that massive quarterback run up the middle. If they could have forced that 3 and out, flipped the field, and because they had momentum up to that point.
Yeah, and it's weird too, because as much as it seems like Washington's defense just got bludgeoned, and they did, against the run, giving up 303 yards on 38 carries, 8 a carry. But it felt like Washington's defense was keeping them in the game, and did keep them in the game. The first two, it's 14, and they get the long runs. They score 14 points right off the bat, Michigan does. And then Washington's defense clamped down, only allowing, 40 yards in each quarter in the second and third quarter. The field goal they got in the third quarter was due to the pick coming out of halftime, where Penix kind of got hit or got himself trying to throw it away and didn't have enough arm to get it out of bounds. But then Washington defense right then held. And as much as they did get ran over at times, I think they played about as well as you could ask them to play against a really physical team, right? I mean, yeah, it shows 34. The picks give up 10 where they don't even really – I mean, Michigan's down at the 20-yard line on those even inside the 20 on that last pick that Sanders still ran almost all the way back for a touchdown. So you take those 10 off, you give up 24 points. That should normally be good enough for Washington to win the game. But Michigan's defense just wouldn't allow Penix, and they toward the end it almost got sad when – Penix was doing all he could to stay on the field, but he clearly was hurt.
Yeah.
After accumulation of the hits, or the one there on the pass interference holding where it got negated a first down, and he got up holding his hip and then started holding it. I mean, you could tell that he was gutting it through, trying to keep his team in the game or try to get his team back into the game. But Michigan was better. It's just that simple. Michigan was better than Washington, especially up front. And it's the same reason why the teams have won these national title games, and it always, as flashy as you want to be on offense or defense or whatever, it always goes back to when we talk about who wins these national title games, man, they dominated the line of scrimmage.
And I love that. I love that because that's always been a thing in all of football. And that's why you see those guys get drafted high, offensive linemen and defensive linemen. It's who dominates on that side of the ball or right up there at the point of the attack. You usually have a really good opportunity to win football games. And I mean, at every level. And so that's what was kind of refreshing for me, outside of the fact it wasn't Georgia, Alabama, or Clemson competing for one of these things for this thing. But I like that going in, and because I could sit back and be a fan. I didn't find myself going, well, a little bit I did against Michigan, but I was sitting back and just watching a good football game, and it was also, I mean, it was like cherry on top. Oh, look, it's the defensive line that's getting pressure on Penix. It's the offensive line that's opened up these huge holes and getting big pushes up front. And I just hope every kid is watching that game knowing how, a kid that thinks, well, what I do is not important. All I do is I'm just a big kid that just puts on pads and a helmet and push a kid. No, your job is important, and last night was clear evidence of that.
Did you ever think we would see a team win the national title in the national title game with the quarterback only completing 10 passes? It really felt like those days were over.
Maybe back in the mid-'90s.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I didn't even think that was possible.
And again, that's another thing that's so does that change things? Does that change how, is it the start of a revolution like how the air raid was and everyone's going to that run and gun type air raid offense, no huddle, go, score 40+ to win. Are we going back? I mean, or is it going to have to see a few more of these? If Michigan can continue this run with that type of play, that Big Ten style of play, can it be? I mean, is it coming full circle? Are we going back to that?
I don't think so.
Type of football.
I don't think we're going back to that. But if you can dominate like they do on the line of scrimmage, you always have a chance. I think that's the overarching kind of lesson of this game. I don't believe that we're going to see college football go back to 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I do not believe that for 1 second. But what we saw last night from the Wolverines is if you can play that well on the line of scrimmage, you don't have to have a top 5 quarterback in the nation because let's be honest, J.J. McCarthy is nowhere near that. Is he talented? Sure, but he's not that. And they did this. Think about this. They did this without their best offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Zinner went out for the season against Ohio State. He's an All-American. And they just plugged in another guy. I mean, Sharon Moore deserves all kinds of credit for building that offensive line. And Herbstreit kind of outlined that as well, where, you think, and he's right, you think of Michigan football in the years of Michigan football, you do think of, like, big offensive linemen that go on to play in the pros. They had a ton of them back in the 80s and 90s, and then all of a sudden it was like that identity went somewhere for 10 to 15 to 20 years. And now all of a sudden, since COVID, when we come back from that and Michigan's struggling around, and kudos to Harbaugh for recognizing the issues during COVID that popped up. And he got younger on his staff, and that has led to what they're doing right now. And Moore deserves a ton of credit, and not only for building that offensive line, but also keeping the thing afloat. I mean, you think back, it's pretty incredible. Not the first time he got suspended because all they're playing is out-of-conference cupcakes. But the last 3 games that he was suspended, they rolled through Penn State and Ohio State as 2 of the 3 with an interim coach. That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. Outside of the names and those scandal and everything, kudos to the University of Michigan for having the patience. Because remember early with Harbaugh, he was struggling. He had an Ohio State problem. He was winning, but not winning the big games.
He wasn't beating Ohio State.
He wasn't beating Ohio State. And they stuck with him, and did it allowed him to do what you just said. So that's kind of unheard of nowadays too. When there were grumblings, there were rumbles about, will he be let go because he can't beat Ohio State? Will they move on from Harbaugh? And they chose to stick with them, and it paid off. Now, will he stick with them?
All right, that's where we're headed next. When we come back, how do you feel about Michigan winning? What's next for Harbaugh? Did the 4-team playoff work? Was it even an improvement over the BCS title game? And are we still sure Penix is better than Caleb Williams?
Paul Jones Drug offers a free service that makes taking your daily medications safe and easy. It's called convenience packaging, meaning they can combine all your daily medications and put them in sealed, separate daily packages. This process replaces you from having to fill your daily medication dispenser. And as always, Paul Jones Drug prepares individual blister packaging for long-term care patients. With their drive-through window, curbside service, and free local delivery, it's just more reasons you should choose Paul Jones Drug, 809 North Main Street, Milk City.
I'm Rodney Skinner with Paul Jones Drug, and I promise we provide care you can trust.
The Skinny on Sports.
Just a bit outside.
Welcome back. Skinny on Sports, 98.1 FM, the Sports Animal, hanging out here on a Paul Jones Drug Tuesday. Rodney Skinner and the gang at Paul Jones Drug, 809 North Main. Paul Jones Drug is care you can trust. What does that mean? Well, they are the oldest compounding pharmacy in Elk City. That means they are the most experienced at compounding. They've got free local delivery, drive-through pickup. You can curbside tests, vaccinations, and also those blister packs, which is their long-term care unit packaging. Paul Jones Drug's got it all. 809 North Main, Paul Jones Drug, is care you could trust. All right, so that's kind of the game, right? I mean, that game is pretty easy to decipher. Michigan dominated up front. Penix didn't have the magic that we had seen in the past. A lot of the reason why was because of Michigan dominating up front, not having to send a bunch of blitzes to then get a bunch of open guys. You know, they did it with 4 for the most part, and that really stymied Washington's offense. And then the run game in Michigan was phenomenal with 2 guys over 100 yards. Donovan Edwards is an interesting cat for this point in time. That dude is fantastic. And he always seems to show up in the biggest games of the season for Michigan. Think back to last year's Ohio State game. He just ran wild over the Buckeyes in the second. I think he had like 2 70-something yard touchdowns in that game. Ended up over 200 yards. I mean, but what's interesting about him? So last night he's got 6 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What's interesting is that he was there to have 6 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and not just flying into the portal like a bunch of other guys would have done. Mm-hmm. You know, it is highly recruited as he is, as much as he's accomplished in a limited window for the Wolverines in his time there, that he stuck it out to be able to make those plays in that game. That's really, really interesting. That it kind of goes against the grain on a lot of what's happening.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about Michigan winning this? Everybody knows that pays any attention, the scandal that has rocked Michigan football in the last half of this season, the last 3 games, Harbaugh suspended because of the allegations of spying and cheating, and I don't even know really if you can say they're allegations at this. We know Connor Stallions did something.
Yeah.
Now, how much Michigan used that information is probably the one part that gets lost in the weeds that we don't really know. But we certainly know that Connor Stallions was doing what he was doing. And whether or not it was to benefit Michigan to the level that it could have been, I mean, it's hard for me to believe it wasn't. But we don't know that for sure. So how do you feel about Michigan winning the national title?
Well, I think I made it clear. Regardless of team names, I liked how the game was played and how I feel about that. But yeah, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and it's going to be on the back of everybody's mind. I'm sure it was last night during post-game pressers. I didn't hear if there's any questions asked about it, but it does there is a shadow over it. Some people may even say an asterisk should be applied to it, but I don't think we know that yet. Has the sentencing been? Is it done?
I don't think so.
So, let's wait and see, because justice may prevail, but it feels like it more often than not in the arena of college sports, justice does not prevail. Just look at Kansas in basketball, right? So no one's going to like the outcome of it, and I think they will retain this title, and everyone's just going to move on from it. But doesn't feel good. But I guess there could be worse things. I'm trying to think of some, because we're in this age where we can pay players now, so it's not like the SMU thing. It's not as egregious as it was back then, the SMU thing, where it was a big no-no and they got hammered for it. But it's kind of like the Houston Astros thing. I think they were good enough to win without it.
Yeah, see, that's the part that
this year anyway.
That's the part that I don't know, because there is direct correlation to their dominance going back to when this allegedly started.
I'm saying this year, though. I don't think were they doing it as hard this year too?
Oh, they were.
So
they didn't stop.
I think they're built enough to win it all this year. But I know what you're saying. There is a question about that. But
so you talked about him retaining. I mean, I think for me,
do you think it's as bad as they're going to say we got to strip you from this title?
Maybe.
Do you think so?
Absolutely. I mean, if that is. If what is being alleged is true, how could they not? I mean, you strip USC of a title where Reggie Bush's parents had a house. That had zero to do with what happened on the field. Zero. And a lot that's the weird thing about this versus a lot of those older scandals in college football, all had to do with basically paying recruits or paying players.
Right.
Well, what does that really have any effect on the game? Not much. I mean, I guess you could say paying them got them there to be able to play in the game, which, back in the wild west of the 80s and 90s and maybe even early 2000s, the under the table. I mean, that was happening a lot of places. But this directly correlates to success on the field. And it would be just like college football to allow it to happen and then go back and strip it, where Washington gets screwed. Those players on that field last night will never get there's no retribution for them if Michigan gets the title vacated in 5 years. It doesn't help them.
They don't give them the title.
No, everybody.
They probably don't want it either.
Well, it goes back to with the Reggie Bush thing. Everybody saw with their own eyes what happened last night, and that Michigan was the better team. But there's at least a little bit more. If I'm Washington, there's a little bit more of a wonder what would have happened if that wasn't going on, versus like when Oklahoma got blasted by USC in the 2004 season. Those Sooners players aren't going, I wonder what would have happened if they weren't paying Reggie Bush's parents. It didn't matter. The blasting happens anyways, yeah. Right? Whereas at least last night, if I'm a Washington player, kind of in the back of my mind going, I wonder if they cheated to beat us. That's the difference in this one than a whole bunch of those other scandals is there's always going to be kind of that what if surrounding Michigan because what they're accused of affected the play on the game on the field instead of just periphery stuff off of it. And I think for college football, it's probably the best if they do get to keep it, because otherwise everybody that's screaming at them for the last 2 months basically about not letting Michigan in the playoff is vindicated and proven right. And then, and now here we are 5 years later going, could have figured that out then. Everybody tried to tell you, you know what I mean? So that becomes more of a black eye. It's a little. If Michigan wins by 3, I think I'm more apt to be like, this is terrible. But with the dominance, I mean, what Michigan did to Washington, it didn't matter if they had their signs. Because they just beat him up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't matter in a lot of the way, but it feels a little bit fishy to me. You know, it's not. It's hard to give the complete and 100% praise that Michigan probably deserves for the game that they played last night and the season they had, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, yeah, but how much of that dominance throughout the season comes from knowing what the other team is going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the part that this is different than any of those other real cheating scandals of college football for me. So what's next for Harbaugh? Has he coached his last game for the Maize and Blue?
He made some comments last night and made you think he wasn't. But I still think that's up in the air because of the investigation and everything that's going on. It might be a Pete Carroll-esque kind of escape, kind of bolt. I mean, outside of all that, the right job has to open up, and right now in the NFL, and that's where everyone assumes that's next. You know, what job is that? You know, Atlanta's open, Washington. I actually thought Washington when I first heard that. Atlanta, Washington.
Chargers.
Chargers are open, and Vegas is open.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to go where he thinks he can have success, I think, not almost immediately, but very, very soon. You almost have to have that when you go to the NFL because of what we said yesterday. If you don't have, like, almost immediate success in 2 to 3 seasons, you're gone. So where does he feel like that could happen for him? And, you know, it might, you know, look at the draft position too. So, or, you know, how much control he's going to be able to get. But I do think a lot of it hinges on what comes down from the NCAA.
Yeah, and that makes it murky because, as we know, they move at a glacial pace.
Yeah.
So to think that the NCAA is going to have a decision in the next month that then kind of affects Harbaugh's decision, I think is completely naive.
Yeah, because these NFL teams aren't going to wait around.
No.
I think they're going to want to make a higher – I mean, not too hastily, but they want to – for continuity and everything, they don't want to wait until – few days before OTAs or something. They want to get it done way before the draft, so they can go, okay, coach, what's your vision? Who should we go get? So yeah, they're something could happen quick.
Now, you know that there's some that do wait. I mean, we saw it twice in the NFL last year till after the Super Bowl because they, you know, obviously you had Arizona targeting Jonathan Gannon, you had Indy targeting Shane Steichen, that both those guys were still in the midst of a Super Bowl run as coordinators for Philly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, there is that. I mean,
there's that.
It's not like there's a – but on the other side, though, being a college coach for Harbaugh, I mean, I know that the recruiting calendar is different, but there still is, you know, the second signing day comes up in February, and for whatever amount of kids that are left to still sign – I do think that there needs to be some continuity Michigan-wise. You know, there's guys who knows how much J.J. McCarthy's decision to stay or go to the NFL hinges on whether or not Jim Harbaugh is still his coach. You know, so I think that's the part that speeds up the timeline, not necessarily the NFL side of it, but because we're talking about a college coach and the way that college calendar is, I mean, what McCarthy's got to make a decision by when as far as the draft goes. Do we know what that deadline is? It seems like it's always somewhere in the middle of January, right?
Yeah. Last day to declare.
That's
I'll race you.
I mistyped.
January 15th.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. It was coming up here quick. So a week.
A week from
next Monday.
Well, this coming Monday. Yeah.
So that's
that's
another.
I also thought about Edwards too. You know, he's just a junior. Another year too. I don't know how it works anymore. Super seniors, whatever. But he too. So it could really. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, here's quite. So if he goes to the NFL, does that admitting he definitely cheated?
Well, that's how everybody felt about. Well, not necessarily felt about. Well, yeah, that's how they felt about
Pete
Carroll.
Yeah, he saw the posse coming and he jumped.
Yeah.
Ron Meyer, you mentioned SMU earlier. You go back and watch that documentary, the 30 for 30 Pony Excess, everybody at the end of Ron Meyer's time in that documentary says he saw the posse coming, and he got out of town just before they started burning down the houses. Why would he go if he didn't cheat? Well, that to me, that's simple. He doesn't want to deal with all the extra stuff that you have to deal with as a college coach right now.
Recruiting and
the re-recruiting, the portal, the NIL, all of that stuff. And especially for a guy, I think the difference in Harbaugh and maybe some of these other coaches that are college coaches that he knows, he's experienced what the NFL is with the 49. I mean, he knows how the game works and how you divvy up your time, and maybe that's more enticing to him than what college has become with the portal and the NIL. So, I mean, I don't think it's an automatic confession of guilt if he does go to the NFL, but man, there's a ton of smoke that leads to fire that he was. But I think you can make the case if you're him, and he tried to last night. Man, he is. We're innocent. I mean, he is playing that game, and I think he can build the case around being innocent if he does leave with, listen. This isn't the college game that I started coaching at Michigan back whatever year that was.
Believe it or not, it's a lot simpler in the NFL.
It's football.
You pay the guy, they go play.
That's right.
It's just been the same model for years outside of CBA changes. But
and you don't sign a guy for 4 years, thinking you have him for 4 or 5 years, and then a year in, he goes somewhere else for more money.
Exactly.
The contract is there.
Oh,
so
and by the way, he could probably get paid more.
Yeah, there's also that. There's also that as well. So just
has this ever happened? This occurred to me last night after I saw him on the sideline. Has a brother won a national title and then
another one win the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl, because that's very possible this year. I doubt that's ever happened.
Yeah, I mean, who could it even have been?
I don't know.
And not only that, there's kind of two storylines there, right? His brother and then also his old team. With the Niners being so good, maybe this is a good omen for the 49ers, that some of that Harbaugh magic could rub off on them as well. By the way, awesome moment last night when John snuck up on him on the sideline to dap him up and give him a hug. That was very, very cool.
You could tell he was kind of in game mode, and you could almost stressed, which who wouldn't be? It's the biggest game of college football and one of the biggest games of his life. And then his brother coming up, he just kind of loosened him up. And he was like, "Oh, my brother! What the heck? Let's go for it on fourth down. Yeah. We're having fun."
Yeah, he kind of slapped him on the back, and he turned real quick, like, "Who is? Yeah. Oh, it's my brother." Yeah. They gave each other a hug. That was cool. That was very, 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 very cool. And there's a lot, that Harbaugh family and coaching, and with back to their dad Jack, and then the two brothers. It's
say what you want about Jim Harbaugh and like him or not like him. The family aspect is pretty cool. They're close-knit, and in the history there, it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think, like right here on the text line, it's hard to be happy for – I don't think you have to be happy for Michigan at all. And you can be plumb mad and think it's wrong, and I think that's more than – I mean, there's tons of people like that out there. But there is also an element of it that – goes with everything I believe in, and that's the perseverance that he has shown since he's been there. Now, whether or not everything turned around because he cheated, we'll never really know the answer to that question. But like you said, you think about his early years at Michigan, going 10-3 and that not being good enough because you couldn't beat Ohio State, which then meant you couldn't get into the playoff. And where that's gone to now with 3 straight wins over the Buckeyes, 3 straight playoff appearances, and the way that he's kind of turned that into what it is now. It's a testament to sticking with things and being – it's kind of – I mean, Saban never dropped to this point in any point in his Alabama run. But it's kind of like when Saban, and I think you can point directly back to the Sugar Bowl against the Sooners after he sees Johnny Manziel – then he sees his defense get shredded, in that way. Ole Miss was doing it to him at that time where Saban, after seeming completely rigid and unable to change, like Harbaugh has, realizes the game's changing. I have to change or I'm going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what both of these guys did in a lot of ways. They maybe Harbaugh didn't do it with the offensive style the way Saban did, but he darn sure did it with who he was hiring to be his coach. You look at, Jesse Minner and Sharon Moore look like kids out there, right? I mean, and they are. They're young. And Harbaugh was able to go ahead and see that issue and address it.
There could be worse things than Michigan winning a national title last night.
Oh, there's a lot worse things than that.
Like Texas winning a national title.
1,000,000%. You know how awful it'd be if right now we were talking about Lincoln Riley winning the thing?
Oh, I might have called in sick because I would have been physically sick. No, outside of all the controversy and in the Spygate and all this stuff, I enjoyed the game. Enjoyed the game the way it was played. I enjoyed that it was close towards 4 or 5 minutes left in the fourth.
Yeah, they scored with 7 minutes left to make it a 2-score game.
Yeah.
And then the interception happened on the next drive.
And that's when I said, okay, ball game.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the game. And I'm glad it wasn't like last year's or other blowouts, LSU, Clemson, 21, 20?
19 season, 22, 20.
Yeah. So it was entertaining for me.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Okay, did the 14 playoff work? Did it produce anything that the BCS title game didn't?
Well, some would argue that playoff was needed to give us a true champion and not an opinion champion or matchup. So, but there's always going to be instances. There's always been that saying that everybody thought if OU had gotten past Georgia that OU was going to go into and win that thing. There's always that rumor that even Saban thought that. Like he didn't want to match up with OU. I think for the most part it worked. I'd have to go and break down 10 years of it, but I think so.
See, I think the part of it that didn't is the reason why it went to 4 teams. Because there was always the argument of, teams 3 and 4 would absolutely have a chance. And then all of a sudden you get to see these. Think about the lack of competitive games throughout the entirety almost of this 10 years in the semifinals. You can only pick out like a handful of competitive games. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the shocker to me. Going from the BCS title game to the playoff was how much in a lot of those years, how much better 1 and 2 were than 3 and 4. Or how, or the top 2 of the 4. Because, this year had competitive games. Michigan, TCU last year was competitive. And we can almost literally think of them off the top of your head. Clemson, Ohio State that year to play LSU. Obviously, OU, Georgia. But they're in the first Ohio State-Alabama game was a touchdown game in that first year. There was very few, though. It was mostly just butt-kickings that then led to whatever it was in the national title game. I don't know if it – if the question is, did the 4-team playoff change the champion? It definitely did in 2014 because Ohio State had no chance to be in the top 2.
Yeah, that's true.
And they ran through and won.
That's true.
After that, 2017, the champion is probably – the champion's not different because it probably would have been OU and Alabama. In Baker's last year, they were 1 and 2. No. That's not right. Clemson was number 1. It definitely changed the champion that year. If it's OU and Clemson the way it was seeded, because Clemson was just bludgeoned by Alabama, a bad Alabama team that ended up actually winning the title. So it may have changed a couple of them, but I don't think the desired effect, which was it worked the first year. Like, hey, look, any of the 4 can win with Ohio State, maybe not even supposed to be there, and they go through and win. But after that. I don't know how many times that is really the case. It was, and it almost was a waste of time in a lot of those years to even have to play a semifinal because it was so obvious who the top two teams were. Hopefully, I mean, I know in the 12-team playoff, the idea is to have it be more of a March Madness feel with whatever you want to call the underdog having a chance and that kind of thing. We'll see if that takes shape. But I don't think it did with the 4-team playoff. I think it was. I don't think the desired effect was met, and that being showing that all 4 teams have a chance to win a national title, because that just wasn't the case in very many of those years.
I'm looking at numbers here. So out of the 10 years, I'm going to check that.
So 20 semifinals.
Well, I'm looking at title games. If it gave us 1 versus 2, that is what we say works, right? It would be no different than the BCS.
That's right.
So that was 4 times out of the 10 years.
Yeah, and I think the seeding gets weird at times because you don't want a rematch in certain. You know what I'm saying? Like I think the seeding gets a little bit weird in some of those years.
It gets a little.
I mean, obviously you want 1-2, and they wouldn't play until the finals. But there's times where you have to seed a certain team at 2 to avoid. There's. I don't know if the BCS. I'd love to see what the BCS computers
would have been like.
Would have gotten
I'm sure
as
you
the
can
top
Google
2.
that
I
and
bet
find
you
it.
can
Yeah.
too. I bet you can
Because I mean, once it was announced 12-team, you start saying, well, if it was 12-team, this is what the bracket would look like. So I'm sure you can find that BCS. And I remember early on in the playoff era, there was like, well, if there was still BCS, I think it was people trying to prove their point. Like, we don't need a playoff because we still would have got the same 2 teams. And by the way, 5 number ones won it all. I'd love to break that down.
What's interesting is last night was the first time number 1 beat number 2 in the final.
That is true. The underdog, air quoting that one,
was 3-0.
Was 3-0.
That's right. All right, we'll take a break.
I was satisfied with the playoff, the 4-team. It was fun. It added something to it with the Rose Bowls and the Peach Bowls and Fiesta Bowls and all that stuff. The extra game I thought was intriguing. Now I think it will get better with the 12-team. I do.
I think it's gonna be cool to see home games as playoff games. We'll be back.
Paul Jones Drug is Elk City's most experienced compounding pharmacy, meaning they can custom make your prescription medications to your doctor's specifications, safely and effectively providing you with exactly what you need. And for your convenience, Paul Jones Drug has a drive-through pickup window as well as curbside service for testing and vaccinations, and offers free local delivery. Just a couple reasons you should choose Paul Jones Drug, 809 North Main Street in Elk City.
I'm Rodney Skinner with Paul Jones Drug, and I promise we provide care you can trust.
Are you crying? Are you crying?
The Skinny on Sports.
There's no crying in baseball.
Welcome back. Wrapping up a Paul Jones Drug Tuesday. Rodney and the gang at Paul Jones Drug. We talk about it every week. Convenience packaging. What is that? Well, that's where they individually package your daily medication. So that means you do not have to go to your cabinet, get out all the different pill bottles you have, put them into your little pill caddy in the right days and the right dosages and all that. No. They do that for you, where all you have to do is rip open a piece of paper or a package, take them, boom, you're done. Convenience packaging there at Paul Jones Drug. They've also got the durable medical equipment, which is your walkers, your crutches, your canes, etc. They accept most insurances, and also, don't forget, it's not just the medical stuff, gifts and greeting cards, all kinds of cool stuff down there at Paul Jones Drug. 809 North Main, Paul Jones Drug is care you can trust. We appreciate Rodney and all the gang down there for their continued support of the Skinny on Sports. Programming note, Jared. I don't even know if I told you this yet. Thursday morning, 9:30, we will be having a guest. And that guest will be Merritt Oilerettes head coach Jeff Doherty.
Oh, very good.
He'll be joining us at 9:30 on Thursday. Talk about the Oilerettes, their season so far, and looking ahead maybe to what there is to come for Merritt Hoops
like
this
in here?
season.
Like in
I think he normally comes by.
Yeah.
Instead of just being on the horn.
Well, very good.
I would anticipate him being right here where we can look at him, see him.
They're having a great season.
They are having a great season. And, oh, by the way, let's switch to the high school basketball. The first set of rankings in January came out yesterday afternoon. And as we suspected, the Oilerettes got a bump, not only from winning the Merritt Classic, but also the third place finish in the Bertha Frank Teague Classic. This is interesting. So they were 7th in 2A. They jump up to 5th in 2A at 12-1. The interesting part is Dale, number 1, defending state champions, 14-0, 58 first-place votes. The only other team in 2A to receive first-place votes was Merritt with 2 of them.
Yeah.
So they're jumping up to number 5 in 2A girls.
That's more like it, I think.
I think so, too. Last year it took a while for them to really kind of – they were in the top 8, but – once they started, we ended up winning, 24 in a row, I think, before the area tournament. Eventually, teams started seeing that, coaches started seeing that, and I think they ended up maybe number 3 going into the playoffs a year ago. Yeah. And here's the truth. In a week, starting a week from Thursday, out at Merritt with the Bi-County tournament, if they win that one, I think they got beat in the finals last year by Hammond. If I remember right, Sealing wasn't there because Sealing played somewhere else.
Maybe the TOC.
TOC or whatever that was.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that opportunity. But if you go through those teams that are going to be out there, there could be another pretty good bump headed toward the top of Class 2A. I think it's going to be impossible, and probably rightfully so, to unseat Dale at number 1, 2-time defending champion Lady Pirates, undefeated. So you know what I'm saying? That's probably a bridge too far. But I do think that the Oilerettes, with a good showing, winning that Bi-County, you've got some very winnable games between now and then. Sayre tonight at Burns Flat, at Hollis, and then you have the Bi-County. So you can go ahead. I think you can not only pencil in Merritt in the top 8 in 2A girls, you can go ahead and write that down with a pen.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Look at the schedule. If they can navigate the Bi-County,
even get to the finals.
Yeah, it's in their home gym. You know how I feel about that. So I like their chances there. Then hosting Hammond and their other ranked team hosting Hobart.
Those are after.
We'll see if they're – and that's after the rankings. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, those are after.
Yeah, that 5 is where I felt like they should – they are – and I think I said that after the Bertha Frank Teague. They are a top 5 team in 2A.
Yeah, I think the question is, will they end up in the top 4?
Yeah, they're still
ahead of the last rankings. 2 weeks from yesterday is when those are actually no 2A isn't. They got another week. That's right. So the Hammond game could affect them. Mm-hmm. I always train myself with A and B.
I know.
You know what I mean with the calendar. So yeah, that could affect them and push them again even to higher heights. But as far as the top 8 goes, I think you can go ahead and pen that in, and Merritt's going to be that. In Class A girls, Canute right there at number 9, just outside. Once again, they've got chances here coming in the next couple of weeks to be able to maybe put their best foot forward and be able to jump into that with, if people realize that Cheyenne's a lot better team than maybe some people realize.
I'm hoping people are paying attention to that because Cheyenne is a really good team.
And then you got the West Central tournament as well. If you can win that, I think I think Canute will have a chance to be able to end up as one of those top 8.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with teams above them too, which is what we always do, right? We kind of score watch these other teams and what happens to them. One of those, I can't remember who it was, lost, and I think they might have dropped, but Hammond or Canute stayed right there at 9. So that's good. I mean, even with the loss. The close 5-point loss to Hooker at the Merritt Classic and still holding ground at number 9. I mean, listen, it could be worse. You could have dropped again, or you could have won the thing and still dropped. Which you've seen some teams that happen to some teams. So they're in a good position. They just got to take care of what they can take care of, which is true for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, Class B girls, man, there's a ton of Western Oklahoma influence in the top 8. I think it's becoming fairly obvious kind of how this is going to break out. Then Arnett at number 9. Leedy at 13, probably too far back to move up in just 2 weeks, even though you got the Tri-County tournament, I think, with the 10-6 record. But as we saw a year ago, Well, I think they had 9 losses going into the playoffs last year and
It
made
didn't matter.
made it to the state tournament. I wouldn't count out the Lady Bison by any stretch. But as far as a top 8 team, Hammond's going to be in that top 8 basically no matter what. And I think Arnett at number 9, Arnett will have a chance to slip up into the top 8 with a good showing over the next couple of weeks into leading into that last ranking. So the Lady Wildcats, I think last year it's kind of similar, and they ended up right there at the 8th spot when it was all said and done. Them and Lomega were the seeds in that area.
Game I'm watching tonight, I know we got to talk about the boys, is Mountain View at Arapahoe, the girls' game.
Okay.
That one might help Arnett. On
the boys' side, Class 2A, Hobart's made their way into the top 8 at 10-1. So they're right there on the cusp. The team that you saw, the Hooker Bulldogs, 9-0, number 6. I wonder if that's just a function of them not playing a ton of games yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like them right there at 6. I wasn't physically there, but I watched a lot of it. And like I said, they're full of athletes. But you go back, look at they haven't had a close game this year. And I'm wondering, too, do they need to see some more opponents? They play a team out of Kansas that's ranked. Texoma, watch that one. That's coming up on Friday night.
And then they got the Shattuck tournament coming up.
Yeah.
And, of course, they get that extra week. So
and
you look up Chisholm's ranked in 3A, so that'll be another one that they have in their favor.
I really hope that they get some love despite them being out in the Panhandle. Sometimes you see that where, well, they don't play anybody, da-da-da. Listen, they're a good team. They're a good one.
A team we wondered if they might have solidified their spot with the win at the Warrior Classic in an undefeated ranking. Sentinel bumped way up into the top 4.
Yeah, they did.
The Sentinel Bulldogs 16-0, 8 first-place votes, which is the second most in Class A boys behind only number 1 OK. So Sentinel 16-0, they're up to number 4. So that's a big jump for the Bulldogs, even though it's 2 spots from 6 to 4. That top 4 gets you to a spot where, that feels like much in the same way that the Merritt Oilerettes kind of have solidified into the top 8. I think the Sentinel Bulldogs have as well. They've got a chance against Granite. They'll play Sweetwater tonight, then Granite, number 10 in Class B. And then, of course, that West Central tournament where there's the possibility of seeing number 1 Calumet in Class B at some point probably in the finals, would be my guess, if those are number 1 and number 2 seeds in that tournament. So, if you're a Bulldog fan, you got to feel really good about a top 8 solidification with the newest rankings that come out.
Yeah. Coach Snowden has them going pretty good. I like their chances.
Canute number 12. That they're a team. I think of all the teams we're going to talk about this week and next week, with the chance to go flying up the rankings, it's going to be the Trojans, especially if in the West Central tournament, if you look up and if they were able to knock off back-to-back undefeated top 4 teams in their class, with being Sentinel and then maybe Calumet, that would have to raise some eyebrows in Class A. 4 spots, maybe too far, maybe. But man, if you're the team that handed number 4 Class A Sentinel and number 1 Class B Calumet their only loss of the year, boy, that would have to at least get you close to that 8th spot, if not all the way to it.
Mm-hmm. Tough ask, but if they can come out shooting like they're capable of shooting, consistent shooting, and that run and gun style, they have the chance to beat, I won't say anybody, but a lot of people. And you catch somebody on an off night and you're on, yeah, they got a chance. But man, it is asking a lot, going from 12 all the way to 8. But and again, score watching, you look around and see what happens above them. I mean, look at ceiling. At what point does a 5-5 ceiling team, people go, okay, we got to stop putting them in the top 8?
What's interesting to me is I wonder that about Caddo. They've been number 2 all year.
Right.
5-6. And they finally fell. This week, they finally fell from 2 to 6, still receiving 2 first-place votes. You wonder how much of that is a function of being the defending champion. How much is that, DJ Dill was back. That whole team basically was back. So that may be one of those you trust them. I wonder what's going on there. 2, 3.
I don't know. They
lost 6 of 7 after
it
starting 4-0. Did they have an injury?
It just screams health, doesn't it?
It does.
It just tells you somebody's missing.
And they also went to Mustang.
Yeah, look at the opponents they've lost to. Some higher, bigger teams like Ardmore, and you mentioned Purcell, Carl Albert. They did lose the ceiling there.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I need to give credit there at the ceiling. That's why they're in the top 8.
Yep, one of those things that keeps ceiling there has to be that win over Caddo at Mustang, a 1-point win for sure.
And then they lose the Rattan, number 3 Rattan.
Right,
now
which
number
bumped
2.
up to number 2.
So it's not like they're losing to nobodies. They're losing to really good teams or better equipped teams, but it still kind of makes you wonder.
Class B boys, Leedy at 6. 15-2. They've got the most first place votes outside of Calumet. I guess Wilson Henrietta's down there with 2 as well. But the Bison, after starting 2-2, they reeled off 13 straight. And I think Vice always going to be a tough game for them because of that rivalry. It just is. It's one of those throw the records out type games because of that Dewey County rivalry. It's just going to be a tough one. But after that, going into the Tri-City tournament or the Tri-County tournament, you feel like a 2-1, maybe even a 1-2, depending on how it goes. That Leedy the Leedy Bison probably have done enough to stay inside that top 8 when the rankings come out, and they're definitely going to be one of those teams that look and contend for a state tournament appearance. I'm fascinated by. Used to, you could kind of get a sense of how the bracket was going to look because you have the boys teams here, the girls. You could work that where you could get pretty close to knowing where everybody was going to go. At least those top 8s, who was going to match up together and where they were going to be. I honestly don't have any idea now how that affects things because you no longer does a. Like Leedy's a perfect example. Being in the top 8 on the boys' side, just outside on the girls' side, a lot of times the Bison would pull the Lady Bison or vice versa with them into a certain spot, normally at Woodward, just because of their, where they're at geographically. I just don't have any idea how that's going to work until we see the first assignments. I'm fascinated by this.
I'm fascinated for that reason and for what we do. Where are we going to do? How is that going to work?
I don't know.
It might be a little chaotic.
Did I tell you this yesterday? Speaking of, it's a good thing. It's a good thing we don't have underneath the Paragon umbrella? Community Christian. Because I can assure you it would be a problem for that. You know why?
Oh, because one's in
3A and one's in 4A.
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah, you told me that.
I know that's going to be a problem.
That's insane.
But with the Community Christian boys in 3A having the success that they had, it bumped them up to 4A. All right, what do we got tonight? You got Paragon TV pulled up by any chance over there? While you're doing that, I can tell you what's happening here. The I-40 rivals, Weatherford Lady Eagles and Eagles coming to town at the Pioneer Center tonight. It's also Hall of Fame induction night. Coach Danny McClure will be down there as he was one of the inductees. Bill Ansley and also Bill Curry, the other 2 inductees into the Hall of Fame. We'll carry that. I'm going to have to ask you some technical questions about that.
Oh, okay.
That's going to happen in between the games. And so the Elcats game will be over with Lady Eagles. Then everybody's going to kind of clear the floor, have that ceremony, and that's going to be carried on Big Elk TV for sure.
Great.
And we'll have some audio. I think Justin will be down there kind of doing the ceremony. I have our microphone right there as well. And so that's going to be an extra kind of caveat to what we're doing tonight with Weatherford coming to town. And if you're looking to see some good basketball, I can promise you that it will be good basketball played by the Eagles. 13-1, Class 4A number 1, and a resounding number 1 with 54 out of the 60 first-place votes. 13-1, the only loss to Crossings Christian in the Tournament of Champions first round. So the Eagles, if you haven't seen them, it's a sight to behold to see how big they are. at 6'6" to 6'7" in 4 different spots. And, oh, yeah, by the way, the point guard's 6'2", Jackson Smith. So, I mean, it's
He's got some catching up to do.
You don't get much of a break there with them. And then the Lady Eagles and the Elkettes, I'm really interested in that game tonight. It was the first rattle out of the box back on December the 1st over at the Eagles' Nest in Weatherford. I can't wait to see how the young Elkettes, how much they've improved.
Yeah.
Taking on a similar opponent for the first time. That was the first game for 3 or 4 of those freshmen that played minutes and important minutes. See how much they've grown, and of course Weatherford obviously has probably gotten better as well throughout the season. So it's kind of a measuring stick game tonight for the Elkettes and the Big Elks to see how they've improved since that first game back in December 1st.
Games tonight, smaller schools. Cheyenne is at Eric tonight. Corn Bible Academy at Hammond. Mountain View at Arapahoe Butler. Visai is at Leedy. And Snyder at Hollis. And Sarah at Merritt. So
there you go.
Those games. Canute's off tonight, by the way.
Canute's, they're the only one not playing, I guess?
They're not playing tonight. They'll go to Cheyenne on Friday.
Pick it up on Friday.
Yep.
All right.
Weather permitting.
Yeah.
Let's knock on wood on that one.
Stay warm out there.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Thanks to Paul Jones Drug. It's Paul Jones Drug Tuesday. Big Elk and Paragon TV tonight. High school hoops galore. Seriously, stay warm. It's cold out there.
Yes.
That wind blowing. Everyone have a great Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow. It's been the Skinny on Sports right here on The Sports Animal.
You've been listening to the Skinny on Sports podcast with Aaron Cow. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to get alerts of when the latest podcast is available. Thanks for listening.
That ball is blistered to right. Way back. Goodbye.
Hey, Western Oklahoma schools, listen up. How would you like to win a $5,000 interactive smart display for your school? Thanks to Video Reality, an audio-video business in Oklahoma City, you could be awarded one. Here's how. From now through February 28th, anyone can text in 1 time per day through the entire promotion. The winner will be announced during our live coverage on the ParagonTV.com and Cool 94's coverage of the Saturday, March 2nd Class A and B basketball championships. Here's how to participate. The text line number is 580-225-9697. And in the text, simply type in the one-word name of the school you choose to support. We are so proud to partner with Video Reality that through their gracious gift in this promotion, some lucky school will be awarded a $5,000 interactive smart display. Remember, send a text to 580-225-9697. Type in your school's name. It can only be one word, and send it. Limit is 1 vote per day per phone number. Good luck. Video Reality, your audio, video, and control experts.